Welcome to this First Friday Fellowship for December 2017. It's great to be here with you. Let me go ahead and start my screen sharing so that I can show you some slides and we can get things going here. Hope you're doing well today. In our part of the world here, we are dealing with some cold weather here in Ohio and getting used to that a little bit, but I hope you're doing well wherever you're watching from. I'm excited about this topic today. I've been doing these First Friday Fellowships for several months now. I decided to do this at 12 p.m. Eastern today over lunch to see if it was a more convenient time for folks to listen in and participate. But even if you're listening to this recorded, that's okay. And because I wanted to add some value to you today on an area that I've just really been paying attention to for a long time. I've been studying about, I've been learning about for many years. And I'm excited about sharing that with you today and a lot of the information that's really impacted me. Just to give you a glimpse of who I am, if you're not familiar with me, my name's Chris McClure. I'm the husband of Jill. I'm the father to Ryan, Evan, and Anna, and I am a leadership and performance coach. And I'm a certified member of the John Maxwell team and the Igniting Souls team. I have two businesses that I'm a part of directly, and one is Lead Life Big, that is a coaching and training business, as well as Growing Maximized Leaders, which is a partnership between myself and Mark Williams from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So just excited to do what we do, coaching and training. I always start off my trainings showing this slide just because I always want to remind people that today is an event, but the event isn't in itself enough. Because an event encourages decisions, but what we need is a process to encourage development. An event motivates people, but a process is what actually matures people. An event is a calendar issue. You put it on your calendar. You showed up to watch this. You took the time out of your schedule to do that. But a process is a culture issue. It's something that changes the culture of you as an individual, but it changes the culture of an organization, of a family, of a community as well. And then finally, an event challenges people. But an event, or a process rather, changes people. See, we need to be challenged, but we also need to be changed, and the process is what truly changes us. So there is a difference. Today's an event. It's a one-time thing that I do once a month, but it can't be the only thing. It's part of maybe your development process and your journey, but it can't be the only thing because you need many more steps in the process to develop and grow into who you have the potential to grow into. So today's topic is how to maximize the talent on your team. This is a topic that I just find to be super important, but it's one that just is a struggle for a lot of teams. I watch a lot of organizations. I hear stories of friends and people out in the business world, in churches and communities. Even, I'm a youth baseball and basketball coach in the community. And so, I think a lot about teams, not just from sports side of things, but from the business world and the church world, nonprofit world. And this is really important because I think a lot of times we're not maximizing the talent that we have on our team. So what can you expect today when we go through this? Well, first, you're going to learn why developing talent is critical to the health of your team and your organization. Second, you'll be able to learn some causes of disengagement. This is a really important aspect that we need to consider today. And then finally, you're going to learn 5 key actions to implement immediately. I don't want to ever just talk theory. I want to truly help you with practical action steps that you can take to make an impact in your family, in your community, in your workplace, and wherever you are. And so we're going to talk about some causes of some problems, but really what I want to drill down in and get into are what can you do about them? The actions that you can take. So that's where we're going to dive into those 5 key actions that you can implement immediately starting today. So why this topic? Why did I choose to make this the topic of December 2017? Well, part of it is that we're at the end of a year, obviously, and so we're starting to think about wrapping up this year and starting strong in the next year. But really what it's about is that, Houston, we have a problem. That famous line, from the Apollo 13 movie, and just the real life, experience of those astronauts. They're up in space and they're saying, Houston, we have a problem, and they had to find a creative way to get back to Earth safely. And it was a scary time. It was a very unsettling time. But they recognized they had a problem, and therefore they could fix the problem. And thankfully they were able to, and it makes for a great story. Right. But we have a problem here in our culture today too. We have a problem in the business world. We have a problem in nonprofit world. We have a problem in churches. We have a problem in communities. We obviously have a problem in politics. We continue to watch what's happening in our world in many different countries. Here in the U.S. especially, it seems like we're just flooded with daily story after story after story about what's happening in Washington or at the state level, and then we find out there's problems at local level. I mean, bottom line is leadership is challenged. Right now we need strong leaders for our communities and our nation and our world. We have a problem. And part of that problem is this topic, that we are not maximizing the talent on our teams. And I believe there's a solution to that. And that's what I want to share today is how do we move down that path? How do we become solution oriented, not just responding or, just reacting day to day to the, to the challenge at hand or the problem at hand today. This is why this article right here is why it's so critical to understand that we have a problem. This comes from an article I just saw this week from the employeeapp.com website. But it says there in 2016, so not that long ago, just a year ago, only 33% of employees in the United States were engaged, and employee engagement as a whole increased only 3% from 2012 to 2016. Now, these findings underscore the impact that employee engagement has when it comes to overall success of U.S. organizations. In fact, the first iteration of the Gallup report, Gallup found that disengaged employees cost the country somewhere between $450 and $550 billion each year. So we're in 2017, but those numbers haven't changed, okay? Basically, roughly 70% of employees, 7 out of 10 almost, employees are disengaged in their workplaces. If that doesn't say that we have a problem, I don't know what does. So what causes disengagement? That becomes the question for us. A few things that immediately come to my mind that I see and I hear is, one is boredom. Sometimes people are just bored. They're not challenged. They do the job. They show up every day. They go through the grind. They put in their hours. They put in their time, but they're bored. And so they really don't produce at a high level. So that causes disengagement. Sometimes it's lack of training. You're not investing in the people that you say matter the most. Human resources are the most important resources of any organization, because what people do for the organization with their skill set impacts everything else in the organization. It impacts the bottom line, obviously, $450 to $550 billion cost. And a lot of that's just lack of training. Sometimes they don't understand the vision. Sometimes employees just don't understand what the vision is of the initiative, of the business itself, of the industry. Sometimes it's just not been clear to them for some reason. The next one is where I think it really starts to hit home is many people don't buy into the leaders. Whether it's one leader in their department or whether it's the leaders of the entire company, of the community, of the government, whatever the venue is, the organization is, they don't buy into leaders. If you don't buy into the leader, you're not going to be engaged. You're not going to be excited and energized to do what you need to do. So many times this is really the problem. And that's why I'm so passionate about leadership development and growing as a leader myself and helping other people grow as leaders. And then finally, distractions. We're just in a distraction world. It's unfortunate, but it's reality. This phone that I have in my hand can be a blessing and a curse at times, right? We can be connected to so many people and just the touch of the screen, but we can also be distracted so much. And actually my last training was talking about how to have breakthrough productivity, because we are fighting such a distracted world, and what we have at our fingertips. So we always have, more email coming in. We always have more social media posts happening. We always have more text messages or more, Voxer messages or whatever the app of your choice is coming in. There's always something. And so every device can be pinging and dinging and distracting us all day long. And if we don't change our settings so that we don't get all these notifications, we don't have a day with really more than maybe 5-10 minutes of undistracted time. And so if people are worried about what's happening on social media while they're doing their job at work, they're going to be distracted and they're not going to be productive, and they're going to be disengaged from what they're supposed to be doing, and it's costing us a fortune. You see, I'm hearing statistics like in a typical 8-hour workday, employees maybe are producing 4 hours worth of work. They might be there for 8 hours physically, but they're only producing 4 hours worth of productivity. And some people say that number is high. And a lot of it's because of these distractions. But most of it is just whatever it is, there is a disengagement, and people are not all in all the time. They haven't bought into the cause, or they haven't bought into the leader. They haven't they haven't been trained. They're bored. They're distracted. Whatever it is, these are core causes of disengagement. So with all that being said, we need to maximize the talent on our teams. So how can you do that? And that's what I want to spend the rest of our time today talking about, is how can you truly maximize talent? Well, number one is you need to model what you desire. This is the foundation of anything. If you're going to be a leader, whether you're a leader of one or a leader of hundreds, it doesn't matter. You have to model what you desire. John Maxwell's law of magnetism says who you are is who you attract. So in his great book, the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, there's an exercise at the very beginning of this chapter, and he asks us as readers, what are the qualities of employees or team members that you want to have? And so you have some blank spaces to write all that down. And then he basically challenges the reader to look in the mirror and say, now, are you displaying all these qualities? So if you want somebody who is honest, are you honest? Are they on time? Are you on time? Are they hardworking? Are you hardworking? Are they growing? Are you growing? So whatever we want, we have to be. So if you want better team members, if you want better employees, if you want better, people just in your organization or around you in general, in your inner circle, then you need to become a stronger, better person yourself. So that's the law of magnetism. And then there's the law of the picture. People do what people see. People do what people see. Think about little kids. I mean, this starts from an early age. When a toddler is learning how to walk and learning how to run and learning how to play, they do all that because they're watching everybody around them walk and run and play. So we do what we see being done around us. So what are the people that you're leading seeing in you? You see, we can't be the type of leader that says, do what I say, not as I do. That doesn't work. It's never really worked. But especially today, in our world, we know that we can find better leaders. We know that we can leave an organization and find a better situation to be in. The opportunities, while we hear the negative news about the job market or the unemployment rate or whatever, trust me, there are plenty of opportunities around us to work in. We just need to continue to go seek them. But I say all that because if you think you've got the corner on the market and nobody's going to leave you if you're not a good leader, think again. You have to be a strong leader because they're going to do what they see you do. And if you don't like what you're seeing your team doing, then you have to look in the mirror and say, what am I doing wrong that's not causing them to work better, to be more committed, to be on time, whatever the issues are for you. So who you are is who you attract, and people do what people see. So the first thing that we have to remind ourselves, we need to model what we desire. Number two is that we need to invest in our teams. Invest in your team. Now, that's a pretty generic statement. I get that. But you need to understand, what does your team specifically need you to invest in them with? For some, it's training. For others, it's relationship. For others, it's encouragement. For others, it's some kind of a motivational strategy where you're giving them a reason to work hard, to produce, because they're going after a goal. There's something that they can benefit from in the end. How are you investing in your team? So you may ask the question, what if we invest in our team members and they leave us? And that's a valid question. It's something that financial people in the organization are definitely going to be concerned about. What if we spend money on training? What if we spend, money on resources to give these people and then they leave us anyway? But here's a better question that you better be asking yourself. What if you don't invest in them and they stay? What if you don't invest in them and they stay? So you're always going to run the risk of people leaving. But if you don't invest in people and they stay, then you're going to have team members who are really holding you back and putting a lid and a cap on your organization and what you can actually achieve. So you need to invest in your team. So model what you desire, invest in your team. Number 3 is this: empower your team. Empower your team. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this one, just because I want to show you a process to be thinking about as you are just training your people all the time. You see, empowerment should be an ongoing daily thing. But there's a way to do this strategically with each individual team member that can make a big difference. Years ago, I watched my son who plays soccer. I watched his differences between his coaches that he's had over the years. And we've had some coaches where there's one model of player that they desire to have. And so every player is, in their mind has to fit into that model. And if they don't, then they're not going to rise to the top of that team. But then there's other coaches out there, and we've had an example of this where a coach sat there and looked at each player as individuals and said, what is their strength? And what is their weakness? And he positioned them in their strengths. And I'll tell you what, when that has been done, when players have been placed to use their strengths, not just trying to force them into a certain way or a style of play, the team succeeds because everybody's playing to their strengths. But if you're trying to force a square peg into a round hole, you may eventually break off the edges of the square peg to fit in that round hole, but it's not going to be a good fit. That's not where it's meant to fit. So what happens is then you have a lot of weak links on the team that are going to really cause problems. And so you need to be invested in your team. You need to see the strengths of them. You need to invest in their strengths so that they can use those to maximize the productivity that they have. So how do you do this? How do you do this? How do you empower your team? Well, here's a graphic I want to show you. This is something that I've been taught over the years. I've heard it many times. I've seen this illustrated in this way and other ways. But the bottom line is this: it's a 4-step process. And you need to understand, first of all, what level, 1, 2, 3, or 4, your team member is. If they are at level 1 because they're brand new to the organization, they don't know the systems, or they're just coming in with innocent ignorance because they just don't know because they haven't been around the culture, then start them at number 1. Now, people will move around this square at different paces. Some will be quick because they just pick up on things quicker, or they've had experiences in other places, and so they can do it in your environment pretty quickly. But the first is this: I do and you watch. So as a leader, it goes back to modeling. I'm going to do this, and you're going to be by my side watching me do this. I remember even as a teenager when I was working at a sporting goods store in high school and college, when I first got a job there, I remember, the manager and assistant managers, and even some of the other employees, coworkers of mine, they showed me around. They did their job, but I was shadowing them. We see this. You go into a restaurant, and sometimes you'll have 2 people show up at your table, and you're thinking, what's going on? And ends up being that one of the persons is shadowing the other. And they'll even say, this is so and so, and he or she is training with me right now, and so they're just shadowing. They're just doing. They're watching while you're doing. That's step one. Step two is I do and you help. So as they start to have a better feel for what they're doing and what the job is, then you can start to give them some responsibilities. In a restaurant environment, it could be, we're going to take your order. What do you want for your drinks? And they're going to go get your drinks and they're going to bring them back to you. They're not necessarily turning everything over to them, but they're giving them some responsibility. So whatever your environment looks like, what is it that you continue to do, but you're asking for them to help you? So here's part of the problem. As leaders, we find ourselves at times saying this, and you can probably predict what I'm going to say. It's easier if I just do it myself. It's easier if I just do it myself. That is a temptation that we will always face, because better than a young, new, or inexperienced team member is going to know. And maybe you've been doing something for years and you're bringing them onto the team and they're just coming on, fresh and cold. And so it's easier for you to do it. Yes. But you have to look at the long-term perspective. What is the end goal? The end goal is not for you to keep doing more and more. The end goal is that you multiply yourself with others. That's how you maximize the talent of your team, because you are letting them use their skills to help you accomplish the goals. I do it, but you're helping me. And then you shift to level 3, which is you do it and I help you. You start to give them more freedom. You start to say, well, you're going to take the majority of this and you tell me when you need my help. And if you've got it all, then I'm just going to be there watching you. But right now, I'm going to help you however I can. And then finally, you move to level 4, which is you do and I watch. You do it, then I watch you. At first, I was doing it and you were watching me, but now you're going to do it and I'm going to watch you. And so then as a leader, you can move into more of that supervisory role. You're not looking over their shoulder necessarily. I mean, you might have to start there at first, but you back away little by little and you let them build their confidence and their competence and to do it. And then when they are at that place where they truly are released because they are now fully ready to go, then you give them the responsibility with new team members to walk through this process with them. So next time, you don't have to even be the one to do it. If you're training your team members in this manner, let's say you go through 2 or 3 people with this process. Then you have 3 others that can take other people through this process and multiply your efforts and your energy. You can focus on bigger picture things than just training somebody from the ground up. Does that make sense? See, this is a leadership development process. This is how you take somebody who is brand new to a mature, capable leader who can then also do that for somebody else. You want to create multiplication opportunities in your organization, whether you have a team of 3 or 3,000, it doesn't matter. You need to invest in the few and pay the upfront price of time to train them well so they can then train others well after you. That is how you're going to empower your team. So then number 4, especially once you've released people, you need to debrief often. And the reason is because when you do release them and you send them off and you trust them and you say, yeah, they're competent now, they have the confidence they need, I can send them out to do the job. You don't want to leave them alone. See, here's another problem that happens. I've seen this time and time again, is that there is a major difference between delegation and abdication. You see, delegation is giving somebody a task and being connected to them still. Abdication is you throwing a task onto somebody, never checking up to see how they're doing. Did they do it well? Did they do it poorly? Is there a way that you could help them? Are they stuck in any way? See, abdication is just, you're just tossing it on somebody else's plate and you're running the other direction. Delegation is a way to give responsibility to people, but still stay connected to them, to coach and train them and be a resource to them when they start to stumble and fall. You see, even when we delegate, not everybody's going to be ready to take it on and do it completely by themselves yet. But if you stay connected to them, you can be a resource to them. You can be an encouragement to them. You can catch the errors before they do much damage. So you need to debrief often. And here's one of the biggest principles that any organization needs to think about. Don't wait for annual reviews to give praise or address problems. I think companies and organizations are doing better at this from what I'm seeing and hearing. But I still think there's too many times where we wait. It's easier to write down in a file on a piece of paper all the things somebody is doing wrong and then blast them with it at one annual review meeting that's going to affect their performance level and their income level, whether they're going to get a raise or not. Don't wait for an annual review. You need to give real-time feedback, debriefing them regularly. When they have a project and they're in the middle of it, then stay with, check in on them, see how they're doing. If the project is completed, sit down and review. How did that go? What went right? What went wrong? What do we need to do differently next time? And coach them through that process. Because if you do that well now, then those debriefing meetings are going to get shorter and easier along the way. Because they're going to grow. They're going to be maximizing their talent because you are walking them through this. You see, this whole idea of maximizing talent isn't about, giving them everything they need. It's about being there for them, making sure, yes, they are resourced. They need resources, but it's about being there for them and taking their strengths and helping them build on their strengths, not just piling on things that are in their weaknesses. And even when you're giving praise, if you wait for once a year or a couple times a year or just very infrequently to praise somebody for the good that they've been doing, you're going to demotivate them because they're thinking that their efforts aren't even being noticed at all. So what you want to do is you want to give praise and address problems in real time and make it happen in intervals that are going to make sense to what has just been done. Number 5, develop a high accountability and low control culture. A high accountability and low control culture. This is a principle that when I first heard it a few years ago, just jumped off the page at me. Because our tendency, I think, as leaders and managers is to have high control and really low accountability. We want to control what's going on. We call it accountability, but we're really not holding people accountable. We're just creating a stressor in their life. We're trying to control their actions. We're trying to control their next steps. But if you have a high accountability and low control culture, you're building a trust in your organization. They trust you and you trust them. You're not abdicating, you're delegating, where you are staying connected to them and you are working through the issues that they're dealing with. And then this low control is that you're letting them achieve things the way they can do them, not just the way you can do them. I was on a mission trip years ago working with some teenagers. We were doing some rebuilding and in a hurricane hit area. And I'll never forget, one of the teenage boys that was with us had a lot of talent. And he could figure out what we were doing. We were hanging drywall and we were replacing a lot in this home that had been flooded. And I remember I had done some work, drywall work on my own homes, finishing basements and, how do you cut out the hole for electric boxes and things like that. And so I had done it a certain way that I was comfortable with. But I watched this young guy who had a lot of talent, who I didn't need to micromanage, do it a way that just kind of made me cringe. And it wasn't bad. It wasn't like it was dangerous or anything. But it was like, I'm sitting there thinking, how in the world are you going to even accomplish this? And I told him, I said, buddy, I love you. I think you can do the job, but I can't work with you. I can't sit here and watch how you're doing this. I just trust that you're going to get it done. And you know what? He did. He got it done in a very good manner. He did a great job. But I realized that I was holding him accountable to make sure he was getting the job done, but I couldn't control how he did it. Because he had a technique that I thought was very awkward or very, challenging, but it's the way his mind was working. It's the way he was going to get it done. And so I had to let go of control, and I had to say, you know what, you're accountable for doing the task, but I'm not going to micromanage how you do it. So you have to give people space to do their job and don't micromanage. That's really the principle of this. Give people space to do their job. Don't micromanage them. If you tell somebody to stack a box, all the shoes in the back storage room of the store in an orderly manner, you have to trust that they're going to do it that way. Now, sure, if they do it wrong, once again, debrief, give them real-time feedback, help them through it. But give them space to do the job. Don't micromanage them. Nobody works well with somebody looking over their shoulder all the time. My grandfather, I loved him to death. He was a great guy, and he knew a lot of skills around, to fix things around the house. But as he got older and he couldn't physically do those things anymore, and he hired, skilled people like plumbers and electricians and others, he knew how to do the job, and he had done it for, 40, 50, 60 years of his life, but he couldn't physically do it. But what he also couldn't do was let them do it without him hovering. He would follow them around the house, and whatever they were doing, he was right there. And that is a very stressful thing for somebody to do, whether it's a skilled trade like that, or whether it's somebody, working retail or in a restaurant or at a university, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. When somebody's looking over your shoulder, there's a level of stress that comes with that, and that also makes you less productive, and it also creates some disengagement because it feels like they don't trust you. And a lot of times micromanagement comes because we don't trust the people that we're micromanaging. Now, if you're like me, the last thing you want to do is micromanage. But I'll say this, if you feel like you have a person that you have to micromanage, there's a couple of things you need to think about. One is, what have you not done as a leader to train them well enough to not micromanage them? Or two, are they just a bad fit for the job? Because that could be, either one of those could be an option. Sometimes we just haven't trained them well enough, and because we haven't, they really can't do the job well, and so we're micromanaging them. But that's on us. Craig Rochelle, I heard this a few years ago that just really stuck. He said, don't ask, why do our people not do such and such well? You need to ask, what have I not done to make them capable of doing that? You see, we have to take ownership as leaders that what are we doing to help people succeed in their jobs? Don't micromanage them, train them, or if it's necessary, and sometimes it is, they're just a bad fit. They're not going to ever work out because of the skill set needed or a physical ability or whatever it is that's going on. Then you need to let them move to something different gracefully, whether that's you do need to fire them and let them go from that job in your company or your organization, or maybe it's you need to move them into a different department, into a different role. Because as you're micromanaging them, hopefully you're seeing what they are good at too. It may just not be that job. So that's what I want to leave with you all with today, is that we are in a day and age where we have so many resources at our fingertips to train and coach people to be successful. But we're also not maximizing the talent of what we have at our disposal. So one of my passions as a leadership and performance coach is that I'm helping leaders get better at leading their teams, how to train and equip and resource, develop their people and their teams, as well as how to become more high performing themselves, so that when I'm working and doing the training and leading my people, that I'm maximizing my own strengths in that process. So I want to give you an opportunity for a free 45-minute strategy session with me over the next week or so, from wherever you have watched this, whether it's early here in December or whether it's early in 2018, whatever it is for you. But I want to help you start the next year great. I want you to understand that the goals that you have and make them more concrete, and then also look at the challenges that you're going to face, because you are, and then also give you some advice and wisdom on what can you do to maximize your strengths to achieve those goals and to overcome those challenges, those barriers. So if you would like a free 45-minute strategy session with me, just shoot me an email, chris@leadlifebig.com, and I will reply, and we'll figure out a date and time to get together, because I want to help you be successful, because as you grow, then you can help your team grow. But if you're not investing in yourself, if you're not growing yourself, you're not going to be maximizing your own talent either. So as you wrap up 2017, as you head into 2018, I really want to encourage you to think about, what is it that you need to maximize for yourself, and what is it that you need to maximize in your team? What talent do they have that's just underdeveloped? What talent do you have that's underdeveloped? Your talent that's underdeveloped might just be leadership, so that you can help your team members. A lot of times that happens. A lot of times people are promoted because they've done a good job in a role, but then they've not been trained well to lead others and develop others in that same role. So once again, you have to model it. You have to empower people. You have to debrief with people. You have to help them see their strengths and walk them through a process. And I believe that you can do all these things, all these 5 steps that we've talked about, starting today. And you may just need to go back to your team and say, you know what? I need to apologize because I've realized I have dropped the ball, and I've not equipped and empowered and released you and debriefed with you well enough to really help you be successful. But that's going to change today. And here's how we're going to do that. So become a model today. Show humility. Tell them that you're going to have a plan and a strategy to work with them. You're going to look at their strengths. You're going to see where do they fit best, and you're going to help them maximize those strengths or those talents, so that your organization can have the best opportunity for success moving forward. It's been great meeting with you today and teaching you through this. This is something, like I said at the beginning, I'm very passionate about, because there is so much potential in each individual and each team that's just not realized, and it's because of these principles that we just don't do well. It takes intentional effort to develop the talent on our teams. Our next First Friday Fellowship is going to be January 5th, 2018. It's hard to believe that our next one will be in a new year, but it's coming. I hope you have a great holiday season. I hope that you take these lessons to heart, and I hope that you will stay connected with me. If you ever need anything, shoot a message to me at chris@leadlifebig.com, or find my business page, facebook.com/leadlifebig, and I'd love to stay connected to you. Take care. And we look forward to staying connected in the future.